Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we welcome you to another edition of Two Tire Change with Big Rich Richardson, right here on Driving to the Top Productions. And we have got a fantastic show for you tonight. We get a chance to talk about Martinsville and Darlington, two of the biggest short tracks. There you go, on the NASCAR circuit, and a couple of tracks that are very well placed in the hearts of race fans all over the sport. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. We're going to talk a lot about this week's races, though, as we had three. We had the trucks, we had Xfinity, and we also had the Cup Series yesterday. And it was a weird weekend, safe to say. Very controversial first two races. Cup race yesterday, not so much. Denny Hamlin pretty much ran away with that one, but Daniel Hemrick ends up winning the truck race, and it was his first truck win. And it was he took advantage of bad things happening to other people. He really did. He ended up where it was it was good drivers having bad problems. Corey Heim wins the first two stages, leads 149 of 200 laps. But on lap 166, they had a restart. He comes side to side with Caden Honeycutt, and it cut Heim's left rear tire and ended up having to go in and get new tires. So Honeycutt gets the lead. And then on lap 187, Ty Majeski and Honeycutt are running side by side, and Honeycutt's Silverado breaks loose. It was a Ford. It broke. What can I tell you? And both trucks end up going in the outside wall. So that moves Tyler Ankrum, Daniel Hemrick to the front of the field. Both guys run for McAnally Hilgeman Racing. Say that three times real fast. But 4 laps left in the race, Hemrick went underneath Ankrum, made the pass, and ended up winning by half a second. So, it wasn't a case where there was cheating involved or dirty driving. We'll talk about that stuff later. But it was good, clean racing, and it was taking advantage of bad things that happened to other drivers. Hemrick, of course, your winner. Ankrum second. Jake Garcia third. Chandler Smith fourth. Ben Rhodes in fifth. Corey Heim sixth. Andres Perez seventh. Raja Caruth eighth. Stuart Friesen in ninth, and Lawless Allen in 10th. Gio Ruggiero, the rookie who's been making all kinds of major strides this season, came in 12th. Ty Majeski, the defending champ, 13th. William Byron, the Cup Series regular, finished 14th. So, a lot of names that you would expect to be up there, but also a few that you haven't heard up there in a little while, like a Jake Garcia and Andres Perez, and even a Raja Caruth. He's had a rough start to the season. And not only that, he's had a really tough, season and a half. Last year was not very strong for him either. I'm not quite sure if it has to do with the team because they changed a lot of his pit crew last season. Or if it's something with the car, or because they've been running the same Gen 7 cars or trucks for quite a while. I don't know. I'm not real sure what it is. But it's just really weird the way that Raja Caruth was running super strong. And now all of a sudden he's kind of eh. He's what a lot of people call a jag, just a guy, JAG. So, it's going to be a little different. As the season goes on, I hope. I'm a big fan of his. I think he has a lot of potential, and it's going to be fun to see exactly what happens from for the rest of the way. And Raja Caruth, the Martinsville um, Xfinity race. Well, let's see. Um, a lot of excitement, shall we say, especially at the end. Um, and it was there's gonna be something happen. I will be very surprised. Tuesday is usually the day that the judgments come down from NASCAR. As far as penalties for certain things and fines and things like that. Um, Man, I tell you, there's got to be something done in terms of what happened on the last couple of laps, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But you know, we ended up with a race that was fun to watch, but you hated to see it work out that way. Does that make any sense? Uh, when you look at what happened, and the race goes to overtime and had 15 cautions and all these other things. But Austin Hill had no business winning this race. Let's be perfectly honest. He went under three wrecking cars in the final corner of overtime. And you got to feel bad for Sheldon Creed. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy has come in second again by 0.19 seconds. Um, Richard Childress got his 100th Xfinity Series win. Hill wins the $100,000 Dash for Cash bonus. The the cautions throughout the race were one thing. The finish of the race was a whole nother discussion. And you know, you had 15 cautions, including the last one that led to the overtime. 14 cautions before that last one for 104 laps. Connor Zilic sweeps the first two stages, had no part in the outcome. Spun a couple times, made contact with the wall. He ended up nowhere near the front. Um, Taylor Gray, who was a truck race regular last season, ends up finishing in 29th. Sammy Smith ends up 10th. I'm saying this to say this. You there It's almost like the unwritten rules of baseball. Okay. And it's it's a case where you have a driver who, yes, he's trying to win his first Xfinity race. I get that. Both drivers needed that first win on the season and things of that nature. But bumping and banging at a track like Martinsville is one thing. Running someone directly into the corner is a whole different kettle of fish. You just can't do it. And realistically, it cost Justin Allgaier almost as much as it cost the other two guys, because when Gray hit Smith and took him out, Gray had lined up behind Smith to do the restart after for that 15th caution when Matt Benedetto spun. Okay. And you knew you were going to overtime. Or I'm sorry, there were 7 laps left when this happened. Gray had that lead until turn 3 of the last lap. And Smith went hard into the corner and spun Gray into the outside wall. Okay. Now I know Gray and Smith have had issues, and I'll try to put up a feed on my Twitter at BigRich8371 that it's the soundbite from Sammy Smith after the race. They've had issues apparently during the course of the race. There were things being done by Taylor Gray towards Sammy Smith, and which are unacceptable, but you don't do what happened there. So Smith charges into the corner, spins Gray. Austin Hill hit Justin Allgaier from behind as everybody's checking up, sends Allgaier into Smith, and then Hill slides all the way down to the bottom of the track, sneaks through, brings Sheldon Creed through with him, and there's your first two. Um, uh, it's crazy. Austin Hill literally led less than a quarter of a mile and won the race. He hadn't led a drop the whole race. Did not lead 1 inch of that race until the last lap, until the last couple of 100 feet. And then he takes the checker. So, Creed came in second, Allgaier third. The big thing with it, though, is, and Gray is right when he was interviewed, and he said, "I feel like we had the best car all day," which they really did. Even though, um, even though the first two stages went to somebody else, Taylor, because Connor Zilisch won the first two stages. Taylor Gray had a really good truck. The only other car or the only other truck that had the lead was Gray. And he he really should have won that race. Um, so, he was very thankful to Joe Gibbs Racing, very thankful for his team and that kind of deal. Um, but as Sammy Smith said after the race, and this is just part of it, and like I say, I'm gonna attach it to my Twitter feed, BigRich8371. But he said, "quote I'm not proud of that, but if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing." Again, this is Sammy Smith. He's got no respect for me. He was flipping me off on the red flag after the 12th caution wreck. Swore at me. It was definitely uncalled for. I'm not proud of it. But that's exactly what but he would have done the exact same thing. That's what I told him. End quote. Zilic ends up 28th. It's like, next week, back short track racing again. It's gonna make it interesting. It's gonna make it very, 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 very interesting. Um, at the same time, when you look at the results from the race, um, you really had to look at it that yes, it's short track racing, but you can't do what he did. Um, that's kind of taken it over the line. And I mean, there were a ton of people that were absolutely upset about this whole thing. One of the dirtiest drivers in the game right now, in Denny Hamlin, and we'll talk about him later on. He even said it was absolute garbage on his Twitter feed. So if that tells you anything, um, I'm sure there will be some conversations had about any sort of payback this week as they go to Darlington, and what will happen if that does occur. As I mentioned, Austin Hill comes in as your winner, Sheldon Creed second, Justin Allgaier third, Brendan Poole comes in fourth, Sam Mayer fifth, Dean Thompson sixth, Daniel Dye seven, Ryan Sieg eight, Chris Wright nine, and Sammy Smith comes in 10th. Eric Almirola comes in 12th. A couple of other bigger names in the Xfinity series. Harrison Burton was a Cup regular last year, comes in 23rd. William Sawalich, 26th. Connor Zilisch, as we mentioned, won the first two stages, comes in 28th. Taylor Gray, officially 29th. Christian Eckes, 34th. And Jesse Love, 37th, after he had a electrical issue caused him to leave the race very, very early. So, you know, that's short track racing, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, if there's a gap, you have to take it. Mm, yes and no. Josh, yes and no. Um, do you need to take it? Sure, if you can fit through it. Now, at the same time, am I saying you have to have a clear path? No, not saying that. What I am saying is that you have to kind of figure it out. You know, can I get through this without causing everything to go all over the place? Um, so you really gotta wonder. And then of course there's also the deal in this of what's gonna happen down the road. So it's gonna be interesting to see just what happens with all this. Um, I'm curious tomorrow. Keep an eye out. Watch my Twitter feed, Big Rich 8371. The Cup Series race, nowhere near as exciting. Um, Race starts out with Christopher Bell on the pole, and hold on. Sorry about that, folks. So Christopher Bell starts out on the pole, his first pole at Martinsville. Yeah. Uh, Chase Elliott is second, Alex Bowman third, Kyle Larson fourth. So three Hendrick Motorsports cars, two, 3, and 4. Denny Hamlin fifth, Chris Buescher sixth, Joey Logano seventh, Bubba Wallace eighth, Tyler Reddick ninth, and William Byron 10th. So all four Hendrick cars were in the top 10. Not a big surprise. Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing have pretty much dominated the circuit, especially at Martinsville, for quite a while. So start things off. Um, Christopher Bell's out in front. Lots of little battles here and there. Chase Elliott's running really good. He takes the lead, lap 25, and there's some debris out. 31 laps in, boom, yellow. Not the first of the yellows. Some guys decided to make a pit stop there, including, I'm sorry, most of the cars decided to take a pit stop there. A few stayed out, Josh Berry, Austin Cindric, a couple other ones. But they're on old tires. They're on 39 lap old tires. So Chris Buescher gets spun going down the front stretch right at the end of the first stage, and that brings out the caution with 8 laps left in the first stage. So Barry, a bunch of others pit. Joey Logano stays out and takes the lead. Excuse me. Uh-huh. Okay. That sneeze was brought to you by crazy weather in Texas. But anyway, so you're getting to the end of the first stage, and the caution comes out. No major thing. Josh Berry ends up with major battery problems after he gets hit in the side by Bubba Wallace. Traffic jam on pit road. During that caution, Berry gets back in the race, but they had to change the battery. He lost a couple of laps. It was just absolutely horrific for him. And he actually had a good car that probably would have gotten him a top 10 by the time it was all said and done. First stage finishes, Joey Logano's in front. Bowman second, AJ Allmendinger third, Brad Keselowski fourth, Eric Jones fifth. We'll talk about him later. John Hunter Nemechek sixth, Ryan Preece seventh, Chase Elliott eight, Denny Hamlin 9, Cole Custer 10. Austin Cindric then, right after all this is going on at the end of the stage, finds out he has a battery problem very similar to Josh Berry's. These guys aren't teammates. They don't share equipment, that kind of stuff. So Berry's 2 laps down. Cindric is going to be down as they go back to green. Elliott leads the field. Burt Myers ends up being really slow down the front stretch. He has an electrical issue. brings out another caution. Casey Mears gets the free pass. And now we've got Elliott, um, Larson, Hamlin, Reddick, and Bubba Wallace in the top 5 as we go to caution. Denny Hamlin stays out and takes the lead. Now, Denny Hamlin is a Virginia guy. He's won Martinsville 5 times, stayed out, and takes the lead halfway through the second stage. Again, strategy. When you're running a lot of these short tracks, it's a lot of times it's more strategy than anything else. So there's a lot of excuse me, there's a lot of gas and tire um figuring, mileage, how long can it go? How many gallons do we have to put in gas? Those kinds of things. So it's definitely a case where, there's a lot more to it than just going around a mile long track or a 3/4 mile track. A lot more to it. But Elliott, Logano, and Hamlin, they're 3 wide as they go to green. Hamlin takes the lead and he takes off. I mean, he knows what to do. Ty Gibbs, Austin Cindric, Eric Jones, and a couple other guys were all having issues with their cool suits. And they're not even halfway through the race. A cool suit it's actually pretty cool. Pardon the pun. It goes under the fire suit and it circulates cool water through to help keep your body at a decent temperature, because the temperatures in that car, they exceed 100 degrees very, very easily. There are times that I have seen where, after a race or during a pit stop, you'll see recordings of it being 115, 120, 130 degrees in that car. That cool suit definitely helps keeping the body so so it keeps it cool so it's not breaking down for people. Hamlin ends up winning the second stage, Elliott second, Wallace third, Gibbs fourth, Briscoe was fifth. Very uneventful race so far. Lap 202, Riley Herbst spins, another caution, tried to go 3 wide and just, collided with Austin Cindric and spun. Okay. 6th caution of the race. No big deal, right? Hamlin's still in the lead, and he's gonna lead for a while. Shane Van Gisbergen loses a tire and wheel. He lost it right after a pit stop. Serves a 2-lap penalty. Has 2 crew members will be suspended for next week's race. Leaders pit. Hamlin's still out front. So when we go back to green, it's Hamlin, Bell, Wallace, Elliott, Larson. So apparently, Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick have now got an issue. Gibbs ended up getting hit by Tyler Reddick. Spinning Gibbs forced a bunch of cars to check up. And, Ty Gibbs is, when you're on the radio, you say a lot of stuff that you think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I'm not sure that Ty Gibbs could win a race with a box, but he's getting all fired up on his radio talking about, I better not see Reddick after the race. Da, 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 da. And Josh, I'll get to your question in just a second because that is a very good question. But Ty Gibbs has got other things to be concerned about. The man hasn't finished better than 12th all season, and most of his finishes have been in the 20s. He's got a whole lot more to be concerned about than fighting somebody. We get to lap 306, restart. Caution comes out almost immediately. Noah Gragson spins in turn 2. Chris Buescher gets a bunch of damage on his right front. And he was actually the cause of the spin for Gragson because he went over the curb in turn 1 and shot the rear of Gregson's car up in the air. They were both able to continue, but Buescher his car is in bad shape. Um, so, and Gregson is pretty hot about what happened. He's thinking it was, semi-intentional, and it's short track racing. I'm sure Gregson is going to get some sort of a message from NASCAR tomorrow as well. Hamlin still leads as we're restarting. We're up to lap 326. Hamlin leads after another restart. Christopher Bell's trying to take the lead. We're at lap 341 of 400. Hamlin, Bell, Wallace, Elliott, Larson. And then, Hamlin has got lap traffic in front of him. And he opened up a pretty big lead at this point. Still Hamlin, Bell, Wallace, Elliott, Larson. Excuse me, top five. Cindric, they had been changing out batteries every pit stop for Austin Cindric. And he ran out of batteries. So he's behind the wall, done for the day on lap 376. 10 laps left. Hamlin's got a 3.5-second lead on Christopher Bell, and it's coast from there. Hamlin led 274 laps, his sixth victory at Martinsville, ties Rusty Wallace for the most wins at Martinsville in the Cup Series. First win at Martinsville, though, in 10 years. So, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott right behind him. So, not nearly as an eventful race. There was a little thing afterwards where Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick were having a discussion, as they said on the broadcast. Okay, yeah, it's not a major thing. It's short track racing. A lot of people just don't understand. When you're on a half mile or a 3/4 mile track, Darlington's a half mile, or Martinsville, I'm sorry, it is a half mile. It was one of those deals. It really was. It was a case where it was one of those deals. The race finishes with, excuse me, man, all of a sudden, good grief. Anyways, with Hamlin first, Bell second, Wallace third, Elliott fourth, Larson fifth, Ross Chastain sixth, Priest seventh, Logano eight, Briscoe nine, Todd Gilliland in 10th. Others a little further back, Ty Gibbs finished 13th, Tyler Reddick 14th, Kyle Busch 17th, and William Byron 22nd. Not a good day for Byron at all. He just couldn't get anything going. His car handled horribly yesterday. Austin Cindric 37th. Eric Jones finishes 38th. Now, in the race itself, Eric Jones finished 12th. However, he ends up getting DQ'd after the race because he failed post-race inspection. The car was underweight. So the Legacy Motor Club, who owns the car, this came down this afternoon, will not appeal the disqualification of the 43 car. We understand NASCAR allows a clear margin to account for the difference in pre and post race weight. After a thorough audit by the club today, the Legacy Motor Club, we've concluded that we did not give ourselves enough margin to meet the post-race requirement. Although it was not intentional, we are taking steps internally to prevent this from happening again. We therefore accept the penalty and apologize to NASCAR, our partners, and our fans. A lot of that has to do with the wear on the tires, the wear on the brakes, the wear on the suspensions, and things like that. So you're going to have a several pound difference. Believe it or not, there's also a difference in weight on the driver. Because the driver takes that car into inspection. And there are parts of that even make a difference. But you have to meet both pre and post race weight. Eric Jones did not. Ergo, there is no no 12th place finish for Eric Jones. He is officially dead last. So we get into the points after 5 races in the Truck Series. Corey Heim has a couple of wins. Daniel Hemrick has his win. So they're locked in. After that, it's Ty Majeski, Chandler Smith, Stuart Friesen, Tyler Ankrum, Grant Enfinger, Lane Riggs, Jake Garcia, Ben Rhodes, Caden Honeycutt, and Tanner Gray. Those guys would all be in the playoffs if the playoffs started today. In the Xfinity Series, Justin Allgaier has a couple of wins. Austin Hill has a couple of wins. Jesse Love with 1. Connor Zilich with 1. Eric Almirola with 1. So those 5 guys are all locked in. Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Sammy Smith, Ryan Sieg, Carson Kvapil, Jeb Burton, Daniel Dye, Taylor Gray, Brandon Jones, and Harrison Burton round out the current playoff field after 7 races in the Xfinity Series. In Cup, we've got William Byron with a win, Kyle Larson with a win, Christopher Bell, of course, with 3, Denny Hamlin with his win, and Josh Berry with his win. Those 5 guys are all locked. Remember, I told you guys this at the beginning of the season, that it's going to be, I firmly believe, and I'm standing by this, that we're going to have 17 winners. There's going to be a guy that's going to win a race and not make the playoffs. I said that at the beginning of the season. I'm sticking to it. But as it sits right now, outside of those 5 guys, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and Ryan Preece would all be in the playoffs. Excuse me. And I'm sorry. And Michael McDowell would also be in as well. So, with that being said, you got another short track race coming this week at Martinsville. And is it a lot different? Yeah. Is it going to be another one of those races where it's very nip and tuck and very handling extensive? Absolutely. Absolutely. Braking, handling, those are going to be huge in this race come next week. Now, next week, only Xfinity and Cup. Xfinity will be Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on CW, and Cup race will be Sunday at 3 o'clock on FS1. The trucks don't race again until Bristol the following week. So you have 3 short tracks. Boom, boom, boom. You have Martinsville this past week. You have Darlington this week. And then you've got Bristol coming up the week after that, which is real absolute chaos. They call it the bull ring for a reason. And it is pretty crazy out there watching that go on. Josh was asking, why is Denny Hamlin so hated? Denny Hamlin is one of those guys that doesn't care what it takes to win a race. If he has to run a guy into the wall, if he has to spin a guy, whatever, to get the win or to increase his position at the end of the race, he will. Has done it numerous times, has done it to the bigger names in the sport, has done it to William Byron a few times, Kyle Larson, guys like that. So, not to mention he ran on a little stretch there where his whole thing, and he runs well. Now, granted, he has 55 wins in his career. He's tied for 11th all time. I'm not denying that. Okay. And, unfortunately, the owner of his car is a guy that I really respect in Joe Gibbs. The bad part is that he is, he is that guy. He doesn't care. And he thinks that he legitimately is better than everybody else that's out there, which you kind of have to have that outlook, but you don't have to do the things he does in order to get there. His favorite thing for a couple of years there was, I just beat your favorite driver. Well, when you win a race, you beat everybody. And he would get booed pretty good. The only reason he didn't get booed yesterday, to be perfectly honest, is because it was in Virginia. And he had a lot of friends and family and all that kind of stuff there. That's it. I mean, he is Virginia. He's a Virginia driver, and he loves Martinsville. He's very well loved there. It's just like Chase Elliott in Georgia. You know, Chase Elliott's really popular anyway. But when you add the fact that when they race in Atlanta, good grief. You know, when Elliott has won there, the place goes absolutely berserk. All that to say, that's why Denny Hamlin is so hated. It's because he has no respect for the other drivers when they're on the track. Has no respect for any of them, and definitely thinks that he should win every race. And if he doesn't, then you know he's either going to do his darndest to make sure that he wrecks somebody or gets them out of their way to get the win, or you know do what he has to do. What do I think of the throwback? Uh, oh, I love it. I love it. You got to remember these throwbacks are the paint schemes and that I grew up watching on these cars. Um, so and I've seen some of these, and it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be absolutely super cool um, to see these. Uh, to see what's going on, because when I look at this, and I'm actually looking to see exactly who all is doing the throwbacks. Here we go. Because not everybody does it, so that's why I'm double checking to see who all is doing this. Um, yeah, Austin Cindric is running the Freightliner. Well, see, the two design that he's running is actually a Dale Earnhardt design. A lot of people, yes, Dale Earnhardt is known for driving the number 3. Before he drove the number 3, he drove the number 2. It was a Wrangler car, and he drove for Freightliner. But the other thing you have to remember too is at one point in time, Dale Earnhardt drove a pink car. That's all I can tell you. But anyways, he's going after that 1979, 1980 Dale Earnhardt 2 car. Kyle Larson is going to have the throwback to Texas Terry Labonte and the Tony the Tiger paint scheme that he had. Chase Elliott is going to run the Kenny Schrader throwback on the 9 car. I'm really kind of surprised he's not running his dad's paint scheme, because Chase runs the same car number that his dad ran. Ty Dillon is going to be running the same paint scheme as Patty Moise ran in 1989. Yes, Patty Moise. She was a phenomenal open wheel driver that ran Cup for a couple of years. Was very well respected, but she's more well known for her open wheel success. Denny Hamlin is going to be running Carl Edwards paint scheme from 2000. Ryan Blaney is going to be running his dad's old paint scheme. Especially the funny part is with that Dutch boy on the hood and all that. That's what his dad, Dave Blaney, ran like in the mid 2000s. Christopher Bell is going to be running a little bit of a different style of Matt Kenseth's car. He's doing this one to honor his mentor, though, Rick Ferkel, who was involved with NASCAR forever in 3 days. Josh Berry is running a 1965 Indy 500 throwback scheme. Joey Logano is going to run a 76 Cale Yarborough scheme. And I like the numbers from back then. When you look at the two on the Earnhardt car or the Cindric car, the 22, I love that font. Of course, William Byron's running a Jeff Gordon scheme. I'm really disappointed that it's not the true DuPont Rainbow Warrior scheme, but it's that 2015 Flame scheme that he ran that I thought was super cool too. But that's what William Byron's going to be running. Cole Custer is going to run Jimmy Spencer's old throwback. If you have a chance to check out who Jimmy Spencer was or is, Jimmy Spencer was cool. He was the John Kruk of auto racing. And for those of you that aren't familiar with who John Kruk is, he's a retired baseball player, played first base for the Phillies and the Padres and the White Sox. And he was a little overweight, didn't care, didn't have a filter, and just had fun playing ball. Plain and simple. If you've ever seen the video of Randy Johnson in the All-Star game throwing the pitch and the helmet was on, the guy is up there with his batting helmet on backwards, that's John Kruk. Old Crucky was crazy, and that's what Jimmy Spencer was when he raced. Super fun to watch. John Hunter Nemechek is going to run his dad's throwback scheme from back in the 90s. Of course, 43 car Eric Jones. They're calling it John Andretti's throwback scheme. It's the 43. It's the STP scheme. You know dang good and well who it is. It's Richard Petty's throwback scheme. Alex Bowman is going to be running a 200th win tribute scheme for Hendrick Motorsports. Cody Ware is going to be running the Ward Burton scheme from the 90s. And I think is that all of them? And then there's going to be a bunch in the Xfinity series. Carson Quapple and Parker Retzlaff and Justin Allgaier, Sammy Smith, guys like that are all going to run tribute cars as well. So it's going to be kind of cool to see that. Going to be a good time. I really enjoy when they do that stuff. Josh Berry's scheme is cool. The funny part is, though, and to be honest, Josh Berry's current scheme is a throwback scheme. It's the same scheme that the Wood brothers ran for 900 years. They ran that Motorcraft. They ran it's just always been there for the Wood brothers. Yes, they've had other sponsors and things like that, but Motorcraft and that red and white on that Wood brothers car, I mean, that's been, gosh, 60 years now. So, is it going to be fun to see what happens, with these paint schemes and all that? And of course, they're going to a track where they're going to tear these cars to pieces to a large degree. But it's going to be fun to see what happens at Darlington this coming week. Speaking of Darlington, the favorite this week at Darlington, no major surprise, Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin are your two favorites, followed by Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Chase Briscoe, and Christopher Bell. Not a major surprise that Larson and Hamlin are up front. They do always run extremely well at Darlington. And we talked about the fantasy stuff and things of that nature. The DFS. When you're looking at this coming week, especially, there's a couple of guys that you can get cheap that seem to always run well at Darlington. And then there's one guy who has just been running so good lately, and he's still really inexpensive, that at least as of this past week, was really inexpensive. And you could possibly get him even with your higher priced guys. I love Brad Keselowski in this one. As much as I'm not a Keselowski guy, I think Keselowski does very well at Darlington, and he could definitely make a difference. Also, and again, it's his teammate, Chris Buescher. Both of those guys, Keselowski's 12-1 and Buescher's 25-1. Those two guys and Josh Berry. Josh Berry, since he got, even before he had his win, he's really been running well. Ryan Preece has been extremely consistent. Those kind of guys. If Noah Gragson, he just can't get out of his own way right now. For the longest time, I was constantly saying Noah Gragson, Noah Gragson, Noah Gragson, Noah Gragson. Yeah, that's just not. I'm until he gets back to where he's running well, I wouldn't play him. Would I play a Justin Haley? Yes. Would I play a Michael McDowell? Yeah. Um, Zane Smith. I played Zane Smith this past week, and he does pretty well on that cheap end. But if I'm looking at a DraftKings lineup today, and again, they haven't released the exact DraftKings salaries, so I'm ballparking this off of this past week's numbers. I would take Larson, I would take Hamlin, and I would take Byron. Understanding the fact that that's going to take about 60, 65, maybe 70% of your salaries. Then I would take Ryan Preece. And when I'm looking at what I call the El Cheapos, I would be looking at somebody like a Justin Haley or a Todd Gilliland or a Zane Smith. I don't like Gragson. I don't like Herbst. I don't like SVG. I don't like Cole Custer. A lot of those guys have been finding wrecks. Finding wrecks is not a good thing. Finding wrecks is in no way, shape, or form a good thing. So, when you're looking at that, you really have to be paying attention and uh, don't be don't be thinking about getting that one in there. Worry about those guys that are making progress. Um, so when you're looking at those DraftKings numbers and all that, they show you, and let me double check and see what exactly it's called. Um, so when you go into your DraftKings and you look at, I believe it's called something log, and I'm drawing a blank on it. But anyway, when you're looking at that, okay, make sure that because you can follow it. Game log is what it's called on DraftKings. I know they have a similar setup on FanDuel. Check that out because you can see where they started, where they finished, and you're able to see in who is making progress each week, who is going backwards each week, who is finishing more up front, who's finishing more in the back. Now, granted, you got to take into consideration something else too, different races. Because if you go to put somebody out there like you know, a really strong, okay, let's say Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is great until you get him on a super speedway. Until you get him at Daytona or you get him at Atlanta or Talladega, he finds wrecks. He just does. Um, so you got to be careful about that. You're gonna have guys that just don't do well on road courses. You have some that do extremely well, so it can kind of skew those numbers a little bit. make sure that you're also looking at what race it is. See what I mean? So you got to make sure of all that. Um, so it's definitely going to be a interesting race. The Vegas odds at the moment, and this is according to Caesar Sportsbook. Again, Larson is 4-1, Hamlin 5.5-1, Reddick 7-1, Byron 9.5-1, Briscoe and Bell 10-1, Blaney 11-1. Your longest shots are Cody Ware at 100 or at 1,500-1, and Ty Dillon at 1,000-1. John Hunter Nemechek and JJ Yaley at 500-1. Um, it should be interesting. So last year, Brad Keselowski was your winner, for what that's worth. Darlington's a 1.3 mile track that runs like a short track. And that's why I call it a short track and say there's 3 short tracks in a row. Because Darlington runs like a short track. It really, honest to gosh, does. When you sit there and see what these guys are going to do at that track, they have this thing called the Darlington Stripe, where when you run so close to the wall, it sucks you in, and you get that black stripe on the wall. There's a spot where it says Darlington, South Carolina, and I can promise you, it's red on white to start the race. I promise you, I guarantee it, there will be a big black stripe right through the middle of all that by the time the race is over. Mark it down. So, it's definitely it's a fun race to watch. We will definitely recap Xfinity and Cup at Darlington next week. Talk about a lot of other stuff as well. I know there's going to be some F1 stuff coming down next week that we can conceivably get Josh to hop into, and we got a lot to talk about. We're getting into the heart of the season, so it's going to be real fun watching what happens from here on out. But hey, I want to thank everybody that's been a part of the broadcast tonight. Thank everyone that's been watching, everybody that's been checking us out. Please leave us a comment, leave us a question. Let us know what you think of the broadcast, man, whether it's on Twitter at BigRich8371. My Facebook page is just my name, Rich Richardson. Hit me up either one of those places. Let me know what you think of the show, what you like, what you don't like. Let's talk. Would love to get a chance to talk to you about that. Tomorrow night is open mic night on Driving to the Top Productions, so you never know where that's going to end up going. And then Wednesday, Adam and I get into all the Pittsburgh sports talk, as we'll talk Steelers, Pirates, etc. Probably a lot more Steelers or a lot more Pirates this week. We'll get into Steelers more as we get closer to the draft, though. So we'll have a lot to talk about there. And then, of course, next Monday, right here, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, will be another edition of Two Tire Change with Big Rich. So I appreciate everybody that's been a part of this tonight, and I thank you. We will get together again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And until next Monday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, my name is Big Rich Richardson. So long, everybody.